Hi.
What's up, Eric?
Every time. How are you feeling today?
Good.
Good.
Late night last night.
Yeah.
Not like not late, like 3 a.m.
Were you
late,
partying? What were you doing?
but, oh yeah, partying. No, I was up in Guelph. Watched my son.
Yeah.
So big win last night to beat London.
Nice.
Yeah, it was good. They almost didn't though.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm in a good mood.
Up and back, and then from the ice to the car, back on the ice.
Had a March break camp. Just finished up an hour ago, so that went well, which is cool.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, good groups, man.
I really enjoyed it. Sometimes you get this is, I guess, if you're running hockey schools or if you're a coach, like this is a kind of a good thing to understand, is knowing your audience. For me, there's a certain level that there's a certain level of player that I need to have to be an effective coach, or else I'm too much for them. And there's a certain level of player that kind of get me. And I'm not talking you have to be an all-star MVP and go into the Hall of Fame. I'm just talking like for youth hockey, there's a certain level of commitment or give a shit meter that a kid needs to have for them to get me and, our type of stuff. So, and it was really there this week. And especially the one, like the older group, we kind of expected that, but there was a one younger group. They were right into it. It was really enjoyable to teach. They just wanted to learn. And you could just, I was thinking about it while I was going pee, how I would say the success rate of this camp was like per individual. I would say it's like about 98% success rate as far as watching kids improve over a 3-day thing. So we did stick handling and shooting. And amazing to see the results, but having said 98% success rate, because there's a couple kids that didn't have that desire to get better and really kind of learn, and they're just not gonna get that much better that quickly. But the rest of them like exponentially got better this week, which I really enjoyed doing. Yep. And you can see it; they get engaged more, right?
Yeah, for sure. And so it's not even just the skill level. Like it's nice when you have kids that have some skill, so you have something to work with, but it's just the desire is more what the emphasis was on, right? They want to learn and they're listening and they're actually trying to do things and get better. That's where the bread and butter is. So yeah, it was good. I had a good time. Went well. I have multiple things to say now.
Go ahead.
So just
I got a couple things to talk about.
Just give me a minute.
Oh, you're talking like real stuff.
Yeah, real stuff. Oh. So this past week there's an issue with Apple Podcast. So a lot with our podcast. Yeah, it wasn't uploaded. So many people reached out to let me know. So thank you for that, because I was actually not aware of the issue until actually my Christine was the one that made me aware. And then several other people sent messages that I hadn't seen yet about it. Seem to have sorted it out. So it should be up now. So you guys I'll monitor the situation best I can, but I had to actually talk to Apple about it to get it sorted out. So that's good. But YouTube and Spotify are still working. The YouTube videos are actually doing really well. So that's nice to see as well. The online store is ready to go. If you're watching, you might be able to see some of the boxes behind me that has the stuff for you guys. So what I've decided to do is people that are members on the site, if you reach out, then as a member, I'll let you get into the site for early orders. So just send me, I might put a button on our member page when you log in that you can use to contact me, or you can just use a contact page and reach out and ask me about it. And then I'll give you our password to get into the store because it's all ready to go. And then you guys can be the first to get an order in. So I'll put a picture of what the site looks like on the podcast here for this stream, so you guys can kind of see the little preview of what it looks like. But we have like shirts and hats and sweaters, towels, drawstring bags, those kind of things for you guys to get. So if you're a member, you can do that. And then maybe after I talk to those people that are members, then I'll launch it open to everybody in another week or two maybe. So that is that. And again, that like is a brand new thing that I just started doing. So that maybe if there's an issue or something, then just let me know and I'll sort it out with you. It should be fine. It seems I've done a couple test orders that worked well. So it seems like everything's good to go on that. And then while I'm on that note, like the podcast and leave it a review on the Apple thing and the Spotify thing. That's actually helpful. And then that is all that I have to say.
Oh, you said you had a lot.
Okay, so that's my start.
Oh.
Now my lot is this.
Okay.
So do you have anything you'd like to say before I start this?
Yep.
Is it going to be long or quick?
No, not long.
Okay, go.
Could be though.
Okay, because mine's going to be long, and I want to make
No,
sure we
that's
have
fine.
time to get to the episode.
One of the things that I noticed on,
Mhm.
and I saw a few asking for goalie information. If we could
Yeah.
do some really good in-depth stuff on goalies.
I was
like,
going to touch on that, yeah.
If I can only be honest,
Mhm.
I would say that I'm not the guy to talk to. So I would be of what I could offer from goalie perspective is virtually nothing, or I could offer something, but I don't feel I'm qualified to do that. And so I would like to be able to help everybody, but that's
Mhm.
one area that I would be lying to you or guessing at. So, but what I will try to do, and I'm just saying try, I'm not going to go losing my marbles over it, but I will try to get one of my contacts, one of my friends, one of my goalies to come on the podcast and maybe talk about it.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I was
fair enough.
I was gonna go into that just before we get into the actual topic too. Maybe we'll say it again, just before we start about the goalie thing, because people ask, and I say the same thing when they ask. It's like, I don't know, man.
Well,
Not the guy.
we could pretend.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the information I would sound foolish. So why sound foolish?
Yeah,
I'd
yeah,
rather
sure.
say nothing.
Okay, so I'm bringing up the book Range again. So I want to read a couple things out of it.
Yeah, sure.
And I want to get your thoughts on it, because the book is
Okay.
not about hockey, but
Yeah.
I'm going to read what he says, and then maybe we can just have a little back and forth about
Sure.
how it relates,
Sure.
because it was very interesting.
Yeah.
So, again, it's called Range: Why Generalists Triumph in a Specialized World by David Epstein. So for the camera, there it is. I finished reading it, and at the end of the book, there's an afterword. Do you know what an afterword is in a book?
Yeah.
I didn't know what
I read books.
I know. I didn't really understand what it was until kind of recently.
It's after the book has been released.
Yeah, it's like a re-release of the book,
yeah.
so they can put it in a new thing.
Yeah.
So I didn't really realize it was because of that. I thought
Yeah.
people put an afterword just to put one.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize it was because of a
Yeah,
re-release.
fair enough.
Anyways, so this is from the afterword of the book. So this is something that the author added later on, and I just thought it was interesting. So if you read the book, it's worth reading, because it kind of touches on a lot of the topics we talk about. And basically, it's about early specialization. If I could sum it up in one line, they talk about more than that. But for hockey players, the reason I like this is because parents constantly feel the pressure to, like, the kid has to be an all-star when they're 10, or they have to do all the camps and all the everything, and hockey all year round, and never anything else. And the data suggests otherwise in terms of what's effective. So I got 3 little things I'm going to read out of this, and hopefully it's somewhat applicable. So I'm just going to read it, and then you can kind of throw your thoughts on it. So the first part, again, this is from the afterword at the end of the book. So this is the author writing now.
Yep.
Needless to say, most people aren't going to be Tillman scholars, executives, or William Shakespeare. In fact, international research that studied thousands of workers, more than 3/4 of whom did not have tertiary education, produced findings that resonate with a major theme of the book: that sometimes the actions that provide a head start will undermine long-term development, whether that's choosing a career or a course of study, or simply developing a skill or learning new material. So that's the first little blurb about it. So just to summarize, the main point of that section is sometimes the actions that provide a head start will undermine long-term development. So that's the first takeaway.
Undermining mean will get in the way almost?
Yeah, it will actually be detrimental to your long-term development. So undermine, so it will prevent you from learning other things or being better off later on. So if you think early specialization is going to get you where you want to be as a final destination, a lot of times, if you think, okay, for example, hockey, I want to be in the NHL. So when I'm 8, I'm going to make sure it's hockey all the time, because that'll give me the best chance to get there.
Yeah.
And this is saying that's not the case. A lot of times, and that's not to say it's never the case either.
No. Yep.
So just that's the caveat. But a lot of times, people that specialize in one thing earlier, it actually will undermine their success in that very domain that they're studying. Right?
So, and that's what I was that's why I wanted to make sure I had the right mindset going into that. Undermining means, so what I was going to say to that is similar, I think. So when you feel like you should just be skating, stick handling, shooting, focus on hockey, that can undermine your actual athletic development, is what that's saying. So when it comes time to, like, maybe playing a game of squash once a week would be really good for your fast twitch and then but because you've never done that, you never developed that just by having fun or by just playing a sport that's not your sport. You get a crossover benefit from playing a different sport as opposed to just playing hockey and because maybe you never have to do anything like on a real quick. I'm just using that for example.
Exactly.
Hand eye and real quick in a small area. So
yeah, for sure.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so that's kind of the first thing because that's a common thing that people think with respect to hockey development is like the early heads. I get the head start, and that's the important thing about this. Before I go to the next one is sometimes the actions that provide a head start. So you will see the head start.
Yes.
That's very important to understand.
Yes.
You'll see the early benefit of the fact that you're doing all the extra work.
For sure, early.
So but we're talking long term here, right?
Yeah. So the kid that's 6 to 9 years old that's on the ice all the time should, not always, but should look really good as a skater, shoot the puck a little bit better and all that stuff.
Absolutely.
100%.
So I want to highlight that because it's not that you won't see it. You'll see it. So don't get fooled by the illusion is basically my point. Don't get fooled by the head start illusion. So that's the first one, okay? Next section. A 2017 study published by 4 economists in the United States, Germany, and China analyzed education and employment data in 11 countries with a large vocational education or apprenticeship programs, comparing people within each country who had similar backgrounds. So that means like their test scores are similar, family backgrounds are similar, and their years of education. So it's the similar types of people. But they differed in whether they received career-focused training, so that would be a specialization, or a broader general education. So the study is comparing people, same background. One group was specialized training, other group was generalist training. The general pattern was people who got narrow career-focused education were more likely to be employed right out of school and earned more right away. But over time, both advantages evaporated. Decades later, they had spent less overall time in the labor market and had lower lifetime earnings. The early specializers often won in the short term and lost in the long run. Workers who received general education, the economists concluded, were better positioned to adapt to change in a wicked world where work next year might not look like work last year. So this is obviously applying to the adults, but it's the same principle. And it's not one study. Like they talk about several studies in the book. This blurb is talking about one specific study. But again, the general pattern is people who were narrow career focused, they get more right away. So they got a job quicker out of school. They earn more money right away. But long term, the fact that they specialized early actually was detrimental long term. People who know more about more things are better off in their specific field later.
That makes sense to me.
Which makes sense. So that's reiterating the same point that we just touched on. It's that head start thing. You'll see the benefit. You'll see some benefit, and then afterwards, that can go away. And that happens. It's not just a career path. It's a sport, but it's also a career path. So even for people, maybe that's interesting for you to listen to, even as a mom or dad or a kid that just finished school or whatever, you know?
Well, I think a good example of that, I'm just thinking of this business, is that if you let's say you want to be a shooting specialist in hockey, we'll call it a specialist, like you really hone in and you learn everything about shooting. That's good. You're good at shooting, and this is a small area, right? But if you were to coach a hockey team, does that translate into being a good hockey coach? Do you actually understand the flow of the game? Do you understand how to defend? Do you understand how to penalty kill? Or do you just know how to shoot? And then, yeah.
Well, I was talking to a kid today on the ice, actually, and we are asking him, like, what his plans are for the summer and what he's going to work on, and he was talking about normally where he trains and stuff like that, and they do a specific type of training with the trainer that he goes to. And I was saying and he's a little kid, so it's not like he knows. He doesn't know any better, whatever. Like the parents make the choices, obviously. But it's important to understand that training, like we say all the time, training cones, training skill drills is good, but it's not the game. So if you're only doing that, then you'll be really good in practice because that's what drills are. Drills are practice. When the game is now being played, there's a whole host of different variables that you have to contend with while you're playing. And if you aren't being taught to handle those things by different experiences or different coaches or people teaching you about the actual game, then you're at a disadvantage. That's just the reality of the situation. So that's another example of that. Last one. Diversifying the entry points into a given path, I think, is a productive strategy. That includes allowing for early specialization when it makes sense, as one of many possibilities. In late 2019, I had the chance to talk to Serena Williams. I hadn't researched her childhood at all, but I had heard it was like a Tiger Woods story. So for people, just aside, people that don't know the Tiger Woods story, he was basically superstar from day one. Like he was winning golf tournaments when he was like 4. Okay, so he had heard Serena Williams had a similar upbringing. I was only slightly surprised when she complicated that notion. Her father was ahead of his time, she told me. She participated in ballet, gymnastics, taekwondo, and track and field.
Yeah.
She and Venus threw a football to develop the motion of a powerful serve, a habit they continued as professionals. I certainly don't share that to suggest that pure Tiger stories don't exist. After all, the literal Tiger Woods story opened the book, which he talked about that story in depth to start. But we may be telling even that one slightly wrong. As Wood said in 2009, to this day, my dad has never asked me to go play golf. I ask him. It's the child's desire to play that matters, not the parent's desire to have the child play. There's no evidence that parents can simply manufacture what psychologist Ellen Winter calls the rage to master, evident in prodigies like Woods and Mozart. For both Tiger Woods and Mozart, it seems that their famous fathers were initially responding to the child's very unusual display of both interest and prowess in a highly structured activity. Even if the goal were to create as many Tigers and Mozarts as possible, I expect that the best strategy would be exposing children to an array of activities and seeing if one happens to light their fire. So that is a combination of paragraphs from like the last little part. But so he mentions Serena Williams, Tiger Woods, Mozart. But I really like that what Tiger Woods had said. To this day, my dad has never asked me to go play golf. I ask him. It's the child's desire to play that matters, not the parent's desire to have the child play. So that's kind of the takeaway from that, which we talk about that all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
You have what do you say? Motivated parents, motivated players.
Yeah, in a house you have like there's you got motivated players, you have motivated parents, but very very seldom do they live in the same house.
Mm-hmm.
You see that all the time, like, and it's amazing to me. Like I told you a couple weeks ago, I said with my kid, he's got coaches. He's got coaches, and at his age, at the level that he's playing, if he's not motivated, or if he's not going to go and stay for extra ice, or have it not his best game, or whatever it is, it's like I can't do anything about it. If he was to ask me, Dad, kind of make excuses or something, I'll squash that. But for the most part, it's your job now. It's up to you, man. Like I was a good support system for him coming up, and I'm a support system for him right now. I'm not his motivating factor. I am not his coach, and the sooner that people realize that that the player himself has to be motivated, that's he'll either have success or he doesn't, and it's up to him. It's just really not up to the parent. It's all you can do is guide. I'm huge on that. Guide, nudge, know when to say something, know when not to. Like I feel like I'm getting very good at, even I use my kid as an example, but even other kids. Sometimes people don't want to talk about it, right? Like, yeah. So you just let them speak, because when people, the other thing people forget is that, like, you get to the junior level where you're actually serious. Like, and I'm not saying a midget junior or a Bantam 14 guy, U13 guy is not serious. I'm not saying that, but there's a different level of commitment that comes with this, and it's every day at the rink. So you go out and play, and there's 5,000 people watching you, college guys, right? 5,000 people watching you 2-3 times a week, right? And you practice every single day. The coach is not coaching because he's there having a good time. He's coaching to get to the next level. It's about wins. Everything is about hockey for the most part, right? So when you get away from the rink and you go to spend some family time, guess what the last thing is that they want to hear? Is they don't want to hear you go through the game. I mean, of course they want to. That's always going to be a topic of the conversation because it's his life or their life. But it's try not to pick it apart, and try not to tell them what you think so much, because they hear it all the time and they want to get away. And sometimes they just want dad to be dad and mom to be mom. And so actually, my kid was home for a day and a half. They had not a break, but they were allowed to come home for a day and a half. Got in the car, and did he talk about hockey? 100%. And did I ask a couple questions about stuff? Yeah, but I try to ask about the fun stuff, and then when he gets serious about something or has a question about something, it's not coaching. It's just like I give my perception, but I let him do the talking, and then it changes gears. I'm getting very good at even like the kids that aren't my kid when they talk about it, not to keep ramming stuff down their throat about hockey. Sometimes they just want to talk, and sometimes that's the biggest thing that they need because it's the break, man. Imagine coming home after 62 games of hockey at the OHL level. College, you don't play 62 in college, but you come home for 2 days and all you talk about is your hockey, and you should have did this, and you could have did this, and what about this? And it's like, I'll just go back to my team because my coaches get me more than you do, Dad.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and I like how there's saying in the your point is the self drive, and like you're getting it from Serena Williams, Tiger Woods, Mozart, like masters in very different domains, and you got Tiger Woods saying, "My dad didn't have to tell me to go play golf."
Well,
He didn't.
I got my own example
'Kay.
outside of hockey because I'm older than you, right? Done a few things.
True.
By the way, guys, it's my birthday next week, and all these kids know it's my birthday. They want to buy me stuff, so don't send me gifts. It's all good. Don't wish
But
me.
if you're gonna,
If you're gonna. So I was after I was done hockey. This is like the greatest thing because it's not the greatest thing. It's just I related to it so well. I was done hockey. I done coaching, and I just wanted to be out. I wanted to be done hockey, done. So I got a job with a Fortune 500 company, as it was called a marketing rep. But really, what you do is you get a whole bunch of leases. It was for office equipment. Pitney Bowes was the name of the company. Big Fortune 500 company at the time. It was like, okay, this is a great way to start my life. I was excited about it. I thought. So I was in there, and they didn't, like, I was still young and stuff, and they didn't really teach how much money I could have made and how well I could have done. Like, they didn't. The manager I had didn't really go through it, but I was interested, but I wasn't. If I could have went out there and just knock on a few doors or make my calls and make the appointments and just make the money, would have been great. But they didn't really go into details, and I didn't really search it out that much, which I should have. But the point is that the manager would call me into the office, not like in trouble or something. We'd have a weekly meeting or whatever it was, and he would be like, he was much older than me. He goes, you have potential, man. Like you're a natural in this business because you have good people skills. You got this, you got that, you got this. And I'd be like, for about 30 seconds, I'd be like, yeah, okay, I'm going to put it together. I'm going to go do it. And then I'd make my first call or go to my first thing or try to talk about this photocopier. And I'd just go like, I don't care. I should have. I was a little immature, but I was like, and I'd always ask myself, like, but you have to, but I don't. But you should, but I don't. And this guy would be trying to because he saw so much potential, but it was like, that was like the dad in hockey saying, but you could be really good if you just practice, if you just did this. But it's like, I don't have the passion for this. And no matter what you say is not going to motivate me to do any more than I'm doing right now. And I'm not bragging about being an average salesperson.
Yeah.
But it just, my point is that when someone if you're looking for external motivation, or you think externally you can motivate someone, you can maybe pump the tire a bit. But as that tire starts rolling, the air starts coming out of it because it's not real. So when you do that with your kids in hockey or sports or whatever, it's like you'll know, man, you'll know when you're when the kid wants to do it. It's like when a lot of the younger parents, they say, well, my kid, that's all he wants to do is shoot pucks. It's all he wants to do. Like, I get him in the driveway and it's all he does. And it's like, I would put $1,000 on here that if you said a couple times just randomly if he was doing nothing, if you said, hey, do you want to go watch a movie at the movie theater or go to a go-kart thing, and instead of shooting pucks today, I'm pretty sure at 9 you might want to go to a movie or watch a go-kart race or go to the go-karts or something like that. You know what I mean?
For
so
sure.
It's like, if you tell them like you need to shoot your pucks, that's different than the kid actually doing it.
Yeah, there's a difference between something that's novel, like you like it because it's new, as opposed to you actually have a deep passion for it. And that's what happens with a lot of kids. They try a new activity, and maybe you can get faked out into thinking they're into it because it's new.
Yeah.
But then after a while, it's like, I don't want to do this. So anyways, this honestly, this book was awesome. And I know because a lot of people that listen are parents. And so if you're interested, they have it on audiobook too if you don't like to read. so you can listen to it instead of read it. But
Just a question: does he give examples, like dumb it down a little bit?
it's the whole book is examples.
Okay,
So,
good.
but
That's good.
in the verbiage I read,
Yeah.
that last bit,
Yeah.
that's how it's written. So
Yeah.
everything is like that. He's like a very eloquent speaker, and it's like good
Yeah.
vocabulary, and
Yeah.
it's not a book for dummies. Like, you have to actually
Yeah.
be paying attention to what you're reading. So
Yeah.
it's not like I said, I think I mentioned the first time, it's not the easiest read ever
Yeah, that's right.
necessarily, but it's it would be similar to what's the one, Sports Gene or whatever. If anyone's
Yeah.
ever read that, I'm
Yeah.
sure it's similar in style to that one.
Yeah.
So anyways,
I like it because, like, listen, like again, we could give our perspective, and people can say the same thing, but it's like when they do studies and all that stuff, it makes. I'm not saying it's necessarily right. Just saying, but you should be open to looking at that and saying, yeah, maybe that does make sense.
Yeah, and I think the thing I like about it too is he doesn't say that the Tiger Woods story doesn't happen, or that specialization never works ever. It's like he doesn't speak in absolutes about the topic, which is what I like. He's saying you'll find a Connor McDavid, you'll find the Tiger Woods, you'll find the Serena Williams, you'll find these people that
And
are just
you'll find the dad that pushes their kid.
Yeah, exactly.
And
exactly.
the lunatic dad that makes the kid do stuff and the kid doesn't want to, but and he's just good and he makes $10 million, and some dad might say, well, yeah, what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, if that's how you want to be a dad, that's fine.
And how I always say is, you don't use the exception as the rule.
Yeah.
And these people that are the exceptions, don't think that you can just make your kid that.
Yeah.
Because it's just so exceedingly rare. So it's just it really maps it out well with a bunch of different kinds of people, a bunch of different examples, and it's all different types of lifestyles and domains. It's not just sports or anything like that. But so it's really interesting to look into, just because I know a lot of parents think about it and ask questions about it and listen to the podcast. So useful resource if you're into it. So that's all I got for that.
Like it, dude.
So we're gonna do the same thing we did last week this week, but for defensemen, just to continue on our position little series here, and then maybe next week we'll do centerman or something like that. So first thing, you already mentioned it before, is I'm going to touch on the goalies, because they kind of wrap in with defensemen. We don't know goalies, and we can share what we think about goalies, and we've said some things about it before, some clips about it before. My 2 cents is just stop the puck, man. I can't tell you positionally what to do or where to be. Stop the puck, be able to play the puck, be a second effort guy. That's what I can say about goalies. That's the extent of my knowledge. So there's not much else to say outside of that. And I know you already kind of said your piece. So starting off on defensemen, first thing I kind of wrote down was just kind of some principles or philosophy behind being a solid defenseman, or just your general thoughts on the topic to start off. So we'll start there, and then we'll go.
So I love working with D, by the way. Aaron Ekblad's a pretty good D. Dalton Prout, Sergachev, Mike Weber, quite a few guys that have made the NHL, and I really, really do enjoy working with D. Now, having said that, I like doing the skill part of D, because I find there's a lot that sometimes don't get touched on until they get much older. But also having said that, I don't want to complicate it too much for kids either today.
Yeah, for sure.
So I want to keep it like fairly basic.
Yeah.
And really, when it comes down to the basics are everything, right? So that's number one. I want to keep it fairly basic. But this would be my principle for D, is when you look at the dots, that's what you need to take care of, everything on the inside of that. If you understand that right away, then just like we talked about forwards, you don't have to outwork yourself, right? So from a skill standpoint, I think D should be able to obviously be excellent skaters, because you've got multi-directional pivoting and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's important. I think that your skating but I think you're better off being a great skater. I know someone will probably say, yeah, but look at this guy. Again, it's exception to the rule. But for the most part, if you're a really good skater, that helps out as D. And that doesn't mean you have to be the biggest guy or the smallest guy. As we see in the NHL, there's some smaller D and there's some big, huge D. So that's number one. From skating would be huge. And number two, being able to pass a puck really well. And that sounds really, really basic, but there's a lot of guys that don't pass the puck really well. And then the next part would be managing the puck and managing what you do without the puck. is the key thing. So if I go to the board real quick, if you think about this as a D, this is what you really have to be aware of inside these dots. Okay, right, and then to the posts, right? There's your home plate, right? Lefty right there. Okay, there's your home plate. So, because we know that if we can, as a team, but as a defenseman, if you can keep people outside the dots, and so if someone's coming down on you, you're a left D. I'm using the lefty here, man. If you can keep guys to the outside and they get shots from this area, then it's really, I'm not going to say if they score, it's not your fault. But what I'm saying is that it's mostly not your fault, because it's a really good shot or a lucky shot, or the goalie should make these types of saves. So that's number one. When on the rushes, if you can keep guys outside the dots, that would be your priority. So if anytime you get in trouble or whatever, if you can kick pucks out, like if you don't know what to do with it, if you can get pucks out instead of in, I mean, that's very simple, but that's your advantage. So that's your first principle. That's what I would say. Okay.
So I would say for that example, that the box you just drew,
Yeah.
that would kind of be like managing the ice. That's kind of where you're thinking about your positionally. That's where you're kind of those are your guidelines. That's kind of a way I would say it, is managing the ice.
Well, I would say it's like managing your ice without the puck.
Right.
Okay.
Without the puck.
Yeah. So as I said, with a forward, is what you do without the puck is going to determine a lot of outcomes, right? Whether you're around the puck more or you're around the puck less. So kids that are all over the place or not in good defensive positions are not around the puck nearly as much. So as a defenseman, if you know, okay, here's the principle, right? We talked as a forward, right? If we just flip the page, as a forward, we said when you're carrying the puck, if you can, enter at the dots. Why do you enter at the dots or closer to center ice? You want to get more to the middle? It's because it gives you more options. If it gives you more options, then obviously you make more plays. If we said that if a forward comes down closer to the wall or to the boards, then you become a lot easier for a defenseman to play you, because your options are, like if you're a right winger coming down the right side close to the wall, well, you can't go right anymore because that's the wall, unless you want to bank one off, but that's unlikely. So if you flip the page now, if you're defending that, and a lot of players don't know that, like if you're a defenseman, a lot of forwards don't understand where their best options are, right? So this gives you this, and this isn't rocket science, but this gives you at least maybe you're ahead of his thinking. So by him coming down with speed, and I always said this, right? If someone comes down on a defenseman with speed on a one-on-one, it's your angle that'll deter. You can negate the speed a little bit, or a lot actually, if you have pretty good speed. So if you get angles and you force someone somewhere to where you want him to go, then you're at the advantage.
Okay.
Right?
Yep. So then, if we go to a little bit about the comment you made about managing the puck.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Like managing it? What is managing the puck?
Okay,
mean?
I would say that's a little bit later on.
Want to go later on?
Well, no, but what it just simply means is, what I meant by that, and we can go into it after, is a lot of times people say, like, okay, so they get a puck, and let's say you think you're doing everything perfect. You grab a puck, and what you should do is when you take it out, you should keep it in between the dot and the post, so you have options, right? Not against the wall. Okay, so this is just one example I'm giving you. But as you come out, maybe they're a really heavy forecheck and you don't know what to do. So now it's about managing the puck, right? It's not everything works the same. So you'll see a lot of times a D kind of sort of scrambling, or two guys coming on him, he doesn't know. So that's where your partner will help, or just knowing that if I put a puck in a safe place right now, just like an offensive player, if you throw it behind the net, that creates a little bit of chaos. It's harder to defend behind a net. So it's the same thing for you. If you're managing a puck, maybe it's behind the net. Maybe it's just a real wide pass in an area where your partners are going to be. Maybe it is off the glass, but it's managing the puck.
Yeah,
managing.
So you're always,
that's what I mean.
You want to as much as you can put the puck in a position that's advantageous for your team.
Yeah, yeah.
So I just want to be.
So sometimes, like if you watch, and I think this is especially true. No, I know it's especially true once you get to good junior college pro levels. Okay. Youth hockey, it's more like accident because it's not as structured. So if you see sometimes you'll see a D maybe coming from I don't need the thing, coming from behind the net. You think he's going to make a rush or a power play, and he comes out and then he kind of curls back and he goes behind his net. That's managing, right? Because he's seeing there's nothing there, or there's going to be a line change, or you'll see him under pressure and he throws it to the other side and there's like no one there, but then you go, well, that wasn't a very good pass, but his D partner or a winger comes up and picks a puck. That was puck management. That wasn't a giveaway, or that wasn't a just throwing it to giving your problem to someone else. That was just managing the game, and it wasn't a beautiful play, but was safe, rather than trying to make a real a hard hard pass through the middle where it gets intercepted and stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
100%. I just want to be
Okay.
clear about the terminology, because it's one of those things, like we said, be better away from the puck. And sometimes I think, because that's something you hear a lot, is manage the puck. You need to be and that's a term like scouts will throw that out, coaches, GMs, whatever, manage the puck. But it's one of those things that can be like, what does that mean? I don't know what that means, So I just want to be clear about
Just
the,
like
kind of
even
the terminology.
offensively, right? It's if you get a puck and you see and you want to shoot, but you see nothing but shin pads and the other team's crest in front of you. It's like maybe that's not your best option, but you could try to make it fancy. And that's what a youth hockey player would do. They'll try to maybe overstick him or try to get a puck through and it's off a shin pad. Whereas you'll see a pro, they either hang it on or they'll pull it away from someone, or they'll throw it soft in a corner or something like that to manage the puck, right? And as a unit, as a team, they kind of understand that more,
Yeah,
right?
for
Because
sure.
the flow of the game goes certain ways.
Yep. Okay, so then do you want to start working into the D zone a little bit here, or what are you thinking?
Well, here's what I would like to do first.
Okay.
Is I want to stay within the outside the dots thing. So I think the first part of defending would be off rushes. Okay, so let's start with that. So couple things, and again, I want to qualify. This will change. No, the basics aren't going to change, but it gets more complicated. So if it seems like, well, this is like for peewees, that's actually what it's for. This is not for the Buffalo Sabres.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's like kids like, oh, okay, these are principles that I could use and I could set a foundation of, right?
Call up Steve. It's news to see Steve Yzerman.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when we're defending, first thing is where do you defend from? So if we're coming off rushes, is we want to make sure that if we come up, like say we're coming up the ice as a D, and we're coming up the ice and there's a transition to come back to us, what we want to do is maintain inside the dots the best that we can. Okay. Why do we want to do that? We want to do that because if we come even for a second or two, if we come out and then back in, we expose the middle of the ice for plays or for a guy to skate through. Okay, so you've made someone else's job easy. So on transition, if you're coming up the ice and you need to pivot, what you want to do is make sure that you get, so this is a left D. This is backwards for you guys. So left D, we want to make sure we get our ass, our bum, our butt to the middle so that we pivot here. And then from here, we can come out.
Mm-hmm. So your
Okay?
feet, just for people listening,
Yeah.
your feet are always going to
Toes.
be going inside the dots. Your toes are going to be pointing to the outside wall.
Toes are here,
Yeah.
butts here.
As opposed to your butt towards the boards, because then
Yes.
you're exposing the middle of the ice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And then now you can read the play because you're always, remember, when you're defending, you're always better to go inside out. Outside in. That's going to be a recipe for trouble. Okay. So that's number one. So now with that, there's another way to do this, and it's called surfing, and I'm just using that term. And what that is that, so let's just say there's a rush coming down, and this D is going backwards, and this D actually comes forward and forces this guy to the outside. But I think we can agree right now that most Pee-wee teams aren't doing this, or more U14 teams aren't doing that. But
Yeah.
it's another way of
Yeah, we just call
defending.
that flush. That's another one.
Yeah.
Flush. Yeah.
Yeah. Right?
Yep.
But just to say, there is that option. But for youth, I would say come up, toes to the boards, butt to the middle, and then start backpedaling. Okay? Stick on the ice. Okay, so that's number one, because now you can control the dots out. And okay, so you've got that. So now there might be an odd man rush. let's say it's a 2-on-1. So you got two forwards. I'm going to make it an F for forward, even though the camera looks like it's a W. And you're the D. Okay. Here's the puck carriers on the right side. You're the D. So if you play right in the middle, it's okay. You want to cheat a little bit as they're entering. You want to cheat a little bit and take away the pass. Okay. So you go, okay, how far should I go? Well, a general rule of thumb is this is a guideline. So if you're a D and your toes are up the ice like this, as people are entering, is if you look at this goalpost to here, if you can line yourself up kind of in that area, taking away that pass, you're letting him shoot kind of, but you're not totally letting him shoot. You're still putting pressure. You can get a stick on there. So that makes this guy think a little bit, and it makes this guy think a little bit as well. Okay.
And just as a side note, the reason, just for our goalie people, maybe the reason you do that is because the goalie always wants to take the shooter. They don't want to have to deal with a backdoor pass. So if it's a 1-versus-1 shooter versus goalie, then your goalie is supposed to come out and challenge that shot, hopefully make that save, as opposed to you go to the shooter and now that goalie has to slide across the crease and try to make a great save on a backdoor play kind of thing. So just that's kind of why you want to cheat towards the pass side.
Yeah. So you can watch NHL games, and where I think it's maybe more prevalent, where you'll see that, right? You'll see a 2-on-1, and you'll see this happening, and it's maybe going fast, might be going slow, and you'll see the D. It looks like he's forcing, and he's taking away the shot, taking away the pass at the same time. But maybe at the last second, he just kind of veers over to the pass. You see this a lot. So and you might say, well, hey, let the guy shoot. But that is actually the goal of that. Like you actually don't want the shot, but the goal is that you have to give up one. You don't want to give the puck coming across the ice for a tap in or a backdoor or another pass, because the goals are most likely going to be scored by, especially at higher levels, when goalies have to move laterally. So they have this term called the Royal Road now that people talk about. It's like goal scoring happens when it comes across the ice. And that makes sense. A good goalie can just play angles, right? So that would be number one. Going back to the rush would be, this is very, very common in youth hockey, and I'm just going to give you a couple of things to think about. So let's say you're a D, you're coming up the ice, and the transitions again. What a lot of D do when you watch youth hockey is that when the transition comes, guys don't get up the ice enough. So what happens is, say a guy's got a puck, forward's got a puck in the neutral zone, and the D's already at the blue line. So they give up the blue line really early. So what happens now is you leave a huge space for this guy to make plays, right? So like now, if this guy's coming to entering at the blue line, and he's in decent position or not, it doesn't really matter, and you're like already at the dots or the top of the circle, then this guy has all kinds of options. He can slow down, he can cut, he can go wide. Wait for people and stuff, so you've made your job hard. So having said that, what you would like to do is learn how to get up the ice and do drills where you come up the ice and those feet move nice and quick. So what your goal is actually to do is to match someone's speed. Okay, so now this doesn't happen overnight, but what you want to be able to do is gap up so that when you're pivoting, this guy's going as hard as he can and you're moving with him. Right, because if you're going slow, speed will beat slow. So if you can get your feet moving nice and quick and match speed, then you give yourself a chance. And I would say that if you can get fairly close to maintaining matching speed within a stick length, and I could go teach inside shoulder, outside shoulder, and all that stuff, but that's what you kind of want to do. Having your stick in his way while you're skating would be optimal.
And this is what people are talking about when they say have a good gap. That's a thing that people talk about a lot, is having good gap control or controlling the gap. Is you don't want to be so tight to the guy that he can burn you when you transition, and you don't want to
chip it by you.
Yeah, or chip it by you, and you don't want to be so far away that that guy has space in front of you to make plays. So you're trying to match speed with that stick length, so you're minimizing the amount of options that guy has in terms of what he can do with the puck. And that's what people are talking about when they say have a good gap. So it's what you just said, what you just explained is that it's having a good gap on whoever it is that you have to defend against, right?
Yeah, that's exactly that.
Yeah, cool. So from there, do you want to get into kind of some D-zone coverage stuff, or what are you thinking from there?
Well, I'll take this for one more second, okay?
Sure.
So what I would suggest, I don't want to write a whole bunch of drills down or whatever.
This
But-
board or no?
What's that?
Board or no?
Yeah, I'll use a board.
Okay.
But like when you're doing drills, like it's let's say it's a Swedish one-on-one, a lot of people call it,
Mhm.
right? So it'd be like this. Is the whole board show right now?
Yep.
Okay. So let's say you've got a forward starting here. F is for forward, right? Not X. And D over here. All right. And the forward is maintaining a ton of speed, and yours is as a D is to go up, back, and there's a pylon or something here. So what this guy will do is, if he has good speed, is he cheats. He just wants to get as tight as he can. Oh, sorry, wrong way. Tight as he can around the pylon, so that he doesn't get burnt with speed. Or he'll see a slower guy, and he uses that same gap, right? Maybe this guy's got good speed. Sorry, I'm going the wrong way again. And he sees him way up here, and he goes here, and then he slows down. So what I would challenge a D to do on these types of drills is to get yourself up the ice, so when he's coming there, that you're challenging yourself to really backpedal. And I would even say to the point where, I hope that's readable at all, right? Up and challenge yourself up, so that even to the point that the first bunch you lose, so that you understand that, because it's going to take some work. So when you get to here and you start backpedaling and trying to maintain matching his speed, like you're working, because that's really what the game should look like, to the point that you losing some to say, okay, I'm going way too far. I'm going way too far. So maybe if I cut it back a couple feet and read that a little bit more, so that you start understanding, because if you start forcing him here and you have him to make plays by the blue line, you've done your job perfectly, because you let other back checkers come in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I vividly remember doing this drill, especially at the U and in junior. Guys quit, like the D, because you're at such a disadvantage as a D, because that forward has had the whole ice surface to cross over and get speed. And you love it as a forward, because not only do you just get to gain speed the whole time, by the time you're in the battle, you're not even tired, because you haven't had to do any work yet. You've done no stops and starts. You've just been gaining speed slow and steady, and then you get to make a play. So for the forward, it's fun, because you get to win every time for the most part. But then you get the odd D that they have that really good gap, and now it feels like a game, because they're right on you. They have good speed. You have good speed. They have good stick. And now there's always those one or two D that it sucks to go against them, because they just have good position.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I'm just going to give one more.
Yep, sure.
Okay. So I really like this one. It's pretty simple too. You put the forwards on the inside of a blue line, and you put the D, in the neutral zone blue line, you put the D on the defensive zone blue line. And so you do that from both sides. So you do this as a reactionary drill. Okay. So explain to the kids, both forwards and D, that you want this done like extremely hard. Like there's not really any gliding. So it's good for the forwards too. So on the whistle, they're skating hard across the ice. Forwards will have the puck. Okay. So forwards going hard, and the D's matching that speed going forward. On the whistle, both of them tight turn. So the D has to pivot and come up. The forward has to tight turn and get back inside the dots. You come up the ice, so he's racing within reason for the gap.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so don't hang back. That's the key to this. And then on reaction, whistle, forward tight turns to go back. D has to go middle, pivot, and play the one-on-one. So see what I just did there? Most of the times the D will wait, so they don't have to work that hard.
Mm-hmm.
That drill right there, if you do that extremely hard, you're going to learn that gap control real quick, how much leeway you have.
Yeah.
And it's a really good drill for people.
Great.
And then you play that stick on puck and you let it play out. So anyways, there's a couple for
What's really important,
it's good for the forwards too, because you're challenged. See, the biggest thing that I find when you do 2-on-1s, 1-on-1s and stuff like that in practices is that a typical 2-on-1, let's say, is you got a forward coming in, you got another forward coming in, you got the D. This is what typically happens. As they come in, do their rush, the D gets a bad gap, in youth hockey especially, and they don't have to really work hard, because there's no consequence to it, and both forwards slow down. So it's a waste of time drill. So what I tell, like when we do a drill like that, it's like really focus on taking away a pass, really focus on gap control for the D, and then for the forwards, like you can say one high, one low, one fast, one slow. That's a slogan. So that like, so you know that one guy is at least going to net. So if I see this guy slowing down, this guy speeds up. Now you're making this guy think, right? One high, one low. The other way to say it is like, and I'm saying this for the D too, because if you can get in the head of the forwards, you can kind of think the way they think, right? If you know what they should be doing, then you should be able to play it. So the other way to look at this would be if I'm a puck carrier with the puck, I tell guys it's either one high, one low, one fast, one slow, or treat your 2-on-1 like you're on a breakaway and bust your ass to the net so someone's going to the net hard. So if a D sees a puck carrier is going hard, you can get kind of used to that as well. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it's great, man.
Okay.
They're great habits and that's the other thing of the important if people are going to use those drills is you need to take the teaching points of what it's for, because a lot of those drills can just turn into useless if the emphasis isn't on the right thing. So if you're going to use them and take the teaching points to use them properly. Okay, so now we did our neutral zone, our gaps, the transition, and then that's kind of the start of playing D. So then where do you want to go from here? Do you want to go off D zone coverage dump in, or if a guy's gains the zone, how to play that situation, or where do you want to go?
Well, let's just put it like we did with the fours: is you basically have a quadrant, but you don't.
Yeah, there you go.
You have a quadrant,
good,
but
yeah.
you don't.
I like the consistency.
So if I'm a left D, basically basically I'm saying this is my quadrant of the ice. So if we look at the quadrant of the ice, it's not that intimidating, right? Is it that much skating? Not necessarily. Is it hard work? Absolutely. So if you can shrink that down into that, this is what I'm mostly responsible for, things change, then you could say, okay, like if I have to take care of this, that's not so bad probably, right? So I know as a D, or if I'm coaching D or I'm coaching a team, I don't necessarily need my forward to come down and help right down in this area, but I do need my centerman and my D and maybe possibly my other D to come in and help, right? So I know as a D that I've got this post to this dot in this slot, and I've got to get into these battles really hard. Like I got to do it really hard in battle like crazy. So that's not really that intimidating, is it? Really, when you look at it, it's not that bad. So anything that gets loose, you have to be really fast, get your stick on things, and get there. Like that's your job. So that's that really. So now, anytime you get in trouble, where do we not want the puck? We don't want the puck here, right? And is that the home plate? Here's the home plate. We don't want the puck in that area. That's like it's really that simple.
Mm-hmm.
Hockey, I'm talking.
Yep. Okay, so let's do scenario then. Let's say, so you're on your strong side.
Yes.
Their guy has puck in the corner.
Okay, so we got a forward on the other team.
Yep.
Is this good?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, he has the puck.
Yeah.
What do I do? I'm the D.
Well, if you're there already, then you have to press.
Yep.
If he's in major control, then you have to get in a position to cut the net off.
Yep.
Right. So, depending how he got there.
So
right?
let's say he carried the puck down the wall.
Yep.
And now you have to go from maybe that underneath the dot area to go challenge that guy.
Yeah.
So you went out to challenge him.
Yeah.
And now I'm getting into a battle with that forward. So what's my objective when I'm going to battle that guy in the corner now?
My objective is for him to.
Are we talking hit and pin?
Well,
wait for support?
Yeah.
Make a play?
Okay.
Like what are we trying to do?
So I want to like if he's coming down and I was doing it off a rush, of course I want to seal him off, take his hands away. He might not have hitting or body contact. So what you want to do is you want to get just my left hand's not the greatest. So if you can get him here, and as you're coming to inside the dots, if you can angle this guy out, right, towards the boards, what you want to do is take his hands away, meaning he can't make a play. You're skating into his hands, but while you're doing that, you're not trying to knock a puck away, and to the point where you're getting him to the boards. Once you get him to the boards, if you can knock the puck away, great. But you continue through his hands, and it's in contact, it would be called hit and pin. In non-contact, it would be take his hands away and just stay there for a second so he can't move, right? Whatever happens with the pucks, I mean, different coaches will have different objectives, but I mean, you want to keep it to the outside. That's the bottom line. That's just the bottom line.
Perfect. So now let's say that forward tosses the puck to the other corner now. So
you were just corner?
Yep. So you were just in a battle with that guy.
Yeah.
And he just released it to the other side. Now where do I go? I'm the D. Now what am I doing?
Okay, so your first thing is to make sure this guy's not a threat, right? So if he goes back here, you're not that bad. You can just get to the post, right? That's the bottom line, is just get to the post, but just make sure he's not a threat. So you don't let him. If the puck only goes to here, you don't want to leave him totally open, right? So you make sure he's not a threat, and you just creep your way back to the house. So anytime that you feel, so let's just say, because it's very easy to get lost as a D, as a forward, whatever, in your defensive zone as you start running around. So I always said to the guys that I coach, I said, if there's any time where you feel in youth hockey that you are lost and you're just like running around for no reason, I have no problem. If honest to God, I had no problem if someone was just running around and said, well, I need to reset, and they came right back to here, got their ass to the middle and flushed out. I had no problem with that, right? Because it just keeps things safe, right?
So I think remembering that, so if the puck's on the strong side, you have that quadrant you talked about. That's what you're responsible for. So your primary objective when you're challenging the puck is to, if it's a hit and pin, that's fine. Take the guy's hands away, eliminate his space, seal him off. If you have to get into a wall battle, then you'll have support coming from a centerman or whatever. Once that puck swings, your
To the side.
first thing is you're making sure that guy's not a threat.
Yep.
Then you're getting back to net front.
Yep, getting to net front. Yep.
So then once I'm net front now, let's
Yep.
say puck's on the weak
Well,
side.
let me just say one more thing.
Yep.
But if this guy, you don't do a really excellent job of sealing him off, and he kind of gets through, you stick with him. You stick with him,
Right.
and you stick with him. That's just your guy right now.
Yeah,
Until you
sure.
get some help or the transition. But that's your guy, right? And then also, if he happens to spin off of you and come off the wall a little bit, you have to have those quick feet and you have to flush him out. Keep him to the outside. Keep your stick on him and keep poking away.
So then, okay, so then maybe before we go weak side, if that guy, let's say he continues up, he's a good player.
Up. Yep.
Now he's gone. So am I leaving my quadrant to go chase that guy?
Well, okay, so these are switches and stuff like
Yes.
that, and I don't want to talk about that
Yep.
in youth hockey because it can get complicated. But I
Yep.
would say go flush him.
Yep.
That's your guy. Why not?
Yep. So
Right.
so this is where my point of bringing that part up is, because we did the same kind of thing with the wingers. Is there's not all black and white situations, right? So if you're looking for a rule of thumb, if you're like a coach, let's say, if you're a man-on-man team, you stay with your guy, that's fine. But that's where like a switch would happen, or now that's an edge case where it's not, you have to play hockey now and make a decision. So that's all I want to point out with that. So for now, net front D, puck's on the weak side.
So I'm a lefty.
Yep. I came back to net front.
Okay, weak side means it's not on your side. It'll
Yep.
be in the right side. Okay.
Yep. So now the puck is in that other corner. That
Yep.
other D's over there, let's say with the centerman or
Yep.
whatever.
Center,
What am I
whatever.
doing now as that D in
Okay,
front?
so what are we trying to do is we're trying to take away passes. We're trying to protect the house again. So we're looking for any threats in front of the net. And if there is any threats, we're taking the stick away if we can. But the other thing we're trying to, if they come back here, that you can block out, right? But basically you're looking at these guys, you're protecting the house there. So any threats here, if someone's over here, then you're going to kind of sneak out a little bit.
Yep. Perfect. Yep. So let's go to, we can either talk about now off a face-off, or we can go if there's a transition to a breakout as a D now. So we could go from maybe that same play, if the puck's behind, releases the other way again to behind the net, you pick it up, and now we're looking for a breakout. We go through a little bit of breakout philosophy, or do you want to go from face-off?
Well, breakouts. Okay, let's just stick with it. In-game breakouts, right? I don't want to talk like there's set plays, because there really necessarily isn't, especially in youth hockey. When the puck comes loose in a game and you do get the puck, you just have to make decisions, right? That's the bottom line with those types of breakouts. Like, because like we could go through about 300 different scenarios, so I don't know if that makes any sense to do that. But like, that's the one what you said earlier. Sometimes you just have to make the decision. So if you happen to get the puck and you have ice, you skate. If you happen to get the puck and you have pressure, you're looking for your options to just make a simple pass, right? And if you're in a whole lot of trouble and there's a whole lot of pressure, then it's, get it off the glass and out, old school, 1974, right? And then what I was talking about the puck management now is, let's say you do have a puck and you're in your corner and there's guys here. There's like three guys, there's nowhere to go, and you curl back and you see pressure all over the place, right? Well, then let's say you're partner, you know that he's got some room. So that should just be a simple play behind the net, which is it's kind of safe there, right? It's just like the offensive zone when you want to make plays, it's really hard to defend against the net. If you have the puck, you throw it behind the net. Guys, you guys have to think around the net, right? So it's the same thing here. Manage the puck and just send it behind the net, and just let these guys know that's just 2 quick steps to get a puck, right? So that's what I'm talking about in management. Same with if you're coming up the ice like this, and all of a sudden you don't have an option, or you're getting pressured here, and you're not really sure what to do. Is like you come across and you know your D should be in this area. Setting that over here is fine. It's safe. Like I got to do that. Make a mark.
Okay, let's do a face-off, and then we'll go into neutral zone after that.
Yeah. So face off if you're D here, right, and some D are here, some D are here, right. To do different things. The bottom line in a face-off is, like I said in the last episode, is assume that you're going to lose. So if you assume that you're going to lose, you have a forward here. You want to squeeze him. That's taking away his ability to get the puck. That's your number one job, right? And there's a forward that's going to be slashing through. However, guys set up, you want to make sure that you're taking that forward so he doesn't have a chance to the net. That's your number one. If it's loose and you win, then you make the appropriate play, right? You take it behind the net, or you look for a quick outlet pass, depending on how your team plays. I can't tell you how to do it right now because there's a million different things. But the first thing on a face-off is make sure you're defending. So just like you would be with a forward, 50-50 pucks, and if you lose the 50-50, make sure you have your man. If you win the battle, then away you go with your set breakouts, or if you don't have set breakouts, then go make a play. But you're in a good place if you defend first.
Yeah, I think the D zone as a defenseman, and I wasn't a defenseman, so I just remember while I was playing though, when you're D, the main thing is you need to make sure that you're thinking about your D zone first. And the mistake a lot of kids make when they're young, just because of lack of coaching or they don't know any better or whatever, a lot of them still think offense first, even as defensemen. And so that means you release off your guy before you should, or you go to jump in the rush before you should, or maybe it's not clearly out of your zone yet, and you're already cheating to get out. And it's the same issues that forwards have, that D have, because everybody likes playing offense. Offense is great. So when you're D, be a D. That's what I like to say that to even some of the junior guys when I go to watch. They'll say, "Hey, is there anything you saw when you watched?" And I always say to them, if they're for a lot of them that do this, is like, don't be so excited to hop on the offense before you've taken care of your defensive side. So I think that's really important to remember, even off the transition in the neutral zone, like you're still almost in your D zone. So you need to make sure that you're not being too quick to jump up to offense. Make sure that you're taking care of what you're supposed to take care of first before you start to get into the offensive mindset. I think that's really important.
Yeah, there's like a defenseman. It's a tough job, man.
Yeah.
That's why they say it's hard for a D to play in the NHL early, right?
Mhm.
Because there's a lot of things. You have your switches. You have so much pressure coming on you, and you're the guy going in first for the pucks a lot of the times, and you're getting hammered, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, I could go into that stuff, but there's not hitting a lot.
Yeah. So
youth hockey and stuff.
I want to touch on two things on neutral zone, and then we'll talk about offensive zone a little bit to finish up. So I think neutral zone, I just wanted to talk about positioning when you're doing like maybe a regroup in the neutral zone, and then if you're defending a transition in the neutral zone. So if they're doing their neutral zone regroup versus you doing yours. So the one thing I want to talk about on when you guys have the puck, your team has the puck, is what your positioning should be as the D. So you get the puck, go D to D, whatever. Then what do you do? Because a lot of D know what to do when they get it, and then once they get rid of the puck, it's like now they don't know where to go, what to do.
Yeah.
So
I mean, a lot of different scenarios. So this is what I find in youth hockey, that needs to be understood, and this goes from the neutral zone all the way to the offensive zone, is which you really understand this, because this is your support, right? If you're a D and you're playing, let's say outside the dots, I'll be extreme here. You got 2D outside the dots, okay, and you have the puck. Well, if this guy tries to make a play and there's 1, 2, whatever, 3 forwards and a D here, or let's say there's even a forward coming in here. What am I doing here? Okay, let's say it looks like something like this. Well,
that's their players.
Yeah, this is the Fs are their players. This is you. This is me right here. Okay, so and this guy's pressuring me here. So what I can do is I could try to make that pass, But that's a really tough pass to make, because that's going through people. Maybe there's even two guys forechecking you. Sorry. Maybe there's even two guys. They're out of position or they're not. They do it by design. Who knows? You don't have a play to make here. So what do? Dump it in or ice it? And that's not their best option, right? So what a lot of people do is they space themselves out a lot. So what happens here is there's a lot of room for error. Remember what we said? And this is I know I'm butchering this a little bit, but what the principle is that if we can take care of the middle of the ice, both offensively and defensively as defensemen or forwards even, then we can kind of control the game better. So if we, as defensemen, if I have the puck and my partner's way over here, if I get into any trouble, we're in big trouble. So if I try to make that cross ice pass, or if I just happen to lose the puck a little bit and this guy gets on it quick, we're on a 2-on-0, 1-on-1, right? It's a bad position. So what we always want to make sure that we do, always is a word we don't like to use all the time, but it is what it is right now. If this guy has the puck, and this guy should be covering the middle of the ice. Okay? What that does, it eliminates if he loses a puck or he makes a pass and it's a turnover, and he should be a little bit behind him. So what you call that is a hinge, so that if something happens, you're the last line of defense here. Okay? So that's really important. Now, if this D starts moving this way or looks towards this guy, or the play starts moving this way, this D that was covering the middle of the ice from underneath starts to move towards the dots. This D can move him the puck. This D just takes that hinge away, so that if he gets in trouble, he could go back, or if there's a turnover, he can defend. Sure. So that's like very important.
Yeah, that's neutral zone 101, man. Yeah. So the other thing that you didn't explicitly say, but implicit in that, is you're making sure your feet are moving when you're a D. That's another thing that I notice a lot, and you've pointed out a lot, is when D are making passes, they're standing still, or the partner's standing still. You need to have motion as a defenseman. You need to make sure that your feet are moving. So if you have to hinge to get underneath, you're moving, or if you're making a pass, your feet are moving. If for no other reason, you can just recover if you make a mistake. So it's really important that within that structure, you notice that there's a lot of movement happening with the D. Subtle, but your feet are still moving, so that you have some momentum carrying you into your next movement.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I'll just touch on that for a second. Okay, so bear with me, guys. I hope this is readable, guys. I'm doing my best here. So I have a rule, and it's a rule most of the time, that says if your feet are moving, good things should happen, and if your feet are not moving, bad things will probably happen. Right, and that's not an all the time thing, but it's a most of the time thing. But here's just a real simple principle. If we both are not moving, and these guys are, then they're actually can attack pucks, right? But if we aren't moving, then if we get attacked, then we have to get up to speed. Like, it's easier to move it's harder to move a parked car. So by having your feet moving, so if that puck comes across and you're already coming across with them, you have some momentum. So if this guy comes on, you can swing around. You can make some type of mobile move, or you can pivot and make things happen. So having your feet moving is a good thing. The other thing is, if you just look at this motion here, let's just say we don't have the best hinge, which we called, or we're too wide apart, let's say, and I move that puck with my feet moving, and forward came in and tipped a puck, or I bobbled it and it's left in the middle, then you're done because your feet aren't moving. But if you're moving your feet a little bit and you bobble that puck, or you have a turnover of some sort, you're at least moving to recover. And it's a real important thing. But then the other thing is, it's a natural hinge, right? So if this D, even if it's a bad one, if you're moving your feet to make a play, a couple steps or whatever, you naturally move towards your partner for a natural hinge. So if you don't do that, then you keep yourself separated, and then you got to get back to the middle to defend. So you naturally defend by moving. The other thing is, let's just say you're a D and you see this long pass over here. You want to make it to the forward over here, and it's a hard pass. Maybe even you have a lot of room. If you're standing still, to get that puck all the way there accurately hard without getting it interrupted or having a defenseman stand up. That's a lot harder than having your feet moving, where you have momentum, which means you're going to have a harder pass. You have a better chance of getting that to you, which you've done if you shorten that gap of the pass rather than making it.
Yeah,
If
shorten
it's
the
an
gap.
80-foot pass, it actually is a 70-foot pass.
Yeah, that's actually a really important thing to mention too. Is the shortening the gap is like that's a huge thing to know, especially as a D. It's like you want to cut distance as much as you can so that you don't have as much ground to cover if something goes wrong, or even if it goes right. It's like if you want to, you make a good pass and then you have 80 feet to cover instead of 20 feet to cover to get involved. It's a lot easier to get up on 20 feet than 80 or whatever. You know what I mean? So
and the last principle with that, and you could use this in the offensive zone as well, is like, you could say like one of the terms is you play like you're two guys at the end of a rope or a hockey stick or something like that, a measuring stick, right? So what that means is that if it's a 20-foot rope, you're 20 feet apart most of the time. So if this guy goes this way 2 feet, this guy goes this way 2 feet. So it's always attached. This guy starts going this way, this guy starts going this way, and you're always that distance apart.
yeah,
Right. So if one guy moves left, the other guy's moving left with him. One guy moves up, one guy moves down to just move that measuring stick all the way up the ice. And that's that way you cover your arse that way.
Cool.
Okay.
Let's just go to offensive zone just because I got a hard stop here. So we'll go offensive zone as a D. Well, actually, let's before we get to that, just let's talk about the idea of joining the rush as a D. Now, I don't know if that's something you want to use the board for.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good.
I want to talk about kind of when to go, when to not go, how to identify when to go, and I think just for me, just to throw my own 2 cents on it, is I find a lot of times D aren't looking to join, that's the first issue that I've noticed is that, you do your job defensively and then you watch the game after that as opposed to get involved. Now there's certain different players do different things. Some players are really excited to get on the offense and some aren't. Some are more of a stay-at-home D versus a jump at whatever.
100%.
But identify when you can get involved. That's a really good asset to have as a defenseman, and that's something I find is missing. So
well, and you look at the game right now. You look at the NHL, you look at the junior, you look at college. I don't watch a lot of college hockey, but I'm assuming the same thing. What they call is the fourth forward. You see the Cale Makar coming up on rushes. You see guys like that coming on rushes. Why? Because it's effective, right? So too many times you'll see a defenseman just make a pass, and maybe he's a defensive D. But this is the part of moving your feet. If your feet aren't moving, there's no point jumping in the rush. It's just it's like driving a parked car again, right? So that's what I was talking about earlier too. Is like if your feet are moving and you make a pass and you are already moving, like why wouldn't you get up in the play? Right. So now the where I would say is don't, like, and there you can argue this, I guess. Don't is if you're the last guy, right? So if you're the last guy, you need to be the last guy to defend. That's what I would say, unless you have a really good system that your coaches have told you, or you're playing at a high level that these guys are coming up, so let them join the rush. But I would say like when you make a pass, follow it through, and then if you're the last guy back, you're not the guy jumping in the rush.
Yeah, cool.
Okay,
let's touch on ozone a little bit here. So specifically for me, I want to talk about holding the line versus pinching, and then maybe just a mindset for offensive play, like what you're thinking of doing in the offensive zone as a defenseman. So whatever thoughts you got there.
So offensive D, let's say the puck is on. Well, number one, if you have possession, your team has possession, and let's say let's say for power play example, you got a puck here, you got a whatever. When the puck comes up to this guy, you're no good being here right away, especially if there's any pressure, right? The easier pass would be to get to here. So when you see the puck going here, when the puck goes wide, you get over with them to make it an easy play. Okay, so you're already there. So that's again like we talked about in the D zone or with forwards, is like these are the hard work areas. If you get there fast, you give them an option quick. Okay, once you get the puck, if you're not sending it back down, where you want to make plays is this way. Get to the middle of the ice, right? Get to somewhere around the dot line. So that means this guy's got to work, and then they open up passing lanes here. But what you want to do is get to the middle of the ice. Okay. As far as pinching goes, sometimes it's a philosophy of a team. Like some guys say zero pinching, which is weird. Because what pinching is, guys, is for people that don't know, is like if a winger has a puck or is a loose carrying a puck up and you come down, like say it's a rim, and he's battling that puck, you're coming down, taking that time and space and knocking it away.
As opposed to backing out.
As opposed to so as opposed to as soon as he gets position, you start backing up. What you're doing is you're giving away the blue line, as you said earlier. So that's a place where you can make it really hard for guys. So where you don't want to pinch is that if you're the last guy, right? Again, so like if you're the last line of defense, like, and there's a lot of guys down here, like you don't want to go down if there's, and they've got numbers. Let's say they got a forward here. That's not when you want to pinch because it's an easy pass or a chip that'll get you out of position. So that's something that you should go over with your coaches. It's a philosophy, but there's times where you definitely do want to get down and take away the boards. And there's times where it's like just not the right thing to do. Right. So if you see, like, if you're red and you see red, and this is you, and then you see the other team's white, don't pinch. That's a bad pinch. That's just obvious. Like, so it's like we said with forwards, if you're on top of the puck, then you're in a good position to defend. So you can take a couple more chances. And then just as far as the offensive zone goes, I kind of just said that. You're on a rope as defenseman. This is in general for youth hockey. So if I'm a D here, where should my partner be? My partner should be, remember that distance, middle of the ice. So we're a defensive responsibility here. We're defensively responsible here. So if there's any turnovers, he can be back, right? As the play, if you walk over, you're walking with them a little bit, right? So you're on that, you're just doing that all the way across the ice. Now there are times where, and this is more, I would say in youth hockey, I'd rather keep this than stretching it out. But there are times you'll see, well, doesn't apply a lot of times. You're right. For older hockey or more structured hockey, there's times when on purpose you'll see they'll stretch out the ice like that to get guys moving. But Pee Wee minor or U13 is probably not the time to learn that system. So if you can understand this principle of being on a rope, cutting the ice in half again, then you can, once you get the puck, you can always move this way. Okay. And then this guy's going to follow with him. So be on the rope. And then when you do have a puck, what do we do when we do have a puck? Right. So we always want to, not always, mostly want to take it to I should go on the other side. We should mostly want to take it to the middle of the ice, like inside the dots. Why? What did we talk about earlier? If your most goals are, if you score from outside the dots, it's maybe a lucky goal. You got a really incredible shot.
Low percentage, yeah.
It's a low percentage, right? So if you get inside the dots, you have a better chance of scoring. What you want to do is you want to keep your eyes up. If you see a whole bunch of shin pads in front of you, right, then it's probably not your best option to shoot. That's pretty simple. If you so if you don't have a really good play, it's always, you can throw things in the corner. Very simple, right?
Yeah, safe.
Yeah. And then the other thing for a D, it's like you don't always have to have like the hardest, best shot to get it on net. What I would say is, and this is a skill that I think is can be worked on at a lot of levels still, is when you do get a puck in a shooting lane, like let's say you get a pass from this D to you, you're a left-handed shot, is once you get the puck on your stick, most guys are not ready to shoot. What they do is they get it and then they stick handle and they take the shooting opportunity away. So what you should work on is a lot of working on when you're getting pucks is handling the puck so you keep it on your forehand so you're ready to shoot. And I mean, that's a whole different clinic right there.
Yeah, for sure.
So
I think for me the ozone stuff, everything you said obviously, but then I want to just reiterate that don't hit shin pads. Make sure you're watching or looking where you're shooting. And then second is make sure you can see the ice. So wherever you're getting the puck, just make sure you don't have your back to plays. Make sure that you can see what's going on in front of you, because if you don't see what's going on, that's how guys slip behind you and then they get quick breaks and your defense can break down. So those are the two things I would say on the offensive side. So maybe we could keep talking about this for like another 3 hours.
Well, that's the thing the thing with the D stuff. There's so many things to talk about, but there's also so many skills that go with it that would make it 100 times better to show, like, that would make sense. And like from a defenseman, like if you take those basic principles, that's a really good base, and then work your skill level, like your shooting, your heads up stuff, your transitions, your footwork, and just do the really hard work in those small areas again.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the point, is try to cover like some of the basic
That's
basic
it wasn't to
teaching stuff.
reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, right. So if you guys have follow up on that, hopefully that's helpful and it kind of pairs well with the winger thing. So maybe next week we'll look at doing the centerman stuff, if that makes sense, so we can fill in some of the gaps on that, and then that'll kind of close out our little position series here. So I have a quote to finish.
Good,
You know who Sun Tzu is?
Yeah.
Who's Sun Tzu?
Yeah, he's the Sun Tzu Art of War.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The Art of
I got
War.
his
Wrote the book. He was
book.
a Chinese general.
Yeah.
I think he was like BC. We're talking BCE.
Yeah, before Christ.
Yeah, before the Lord. He was before the Lord.
Old.
Yeah, it's an old guy. Imagine that lasted that long.
Yeah.
That's what's interesting about books, eh?
Yeah.
Like, think how long some of the stuff can last. And think
Yeah.
of all the stuff that was burned or lost or whatever in the past. So interesting. Anyways, here's the quote. Invincibility lies in the defense.
Yeah, wow.
The possibility of victory in the attack. That's my quote.
That's a really good pull.
Good pull.
Yep.
Right.
Have you read
So-
his book?
I haven't actually. No.
Yeah, I've got
seen
it.
I've
It's hard.
seen
so
and read excerpts from it, but I've never.
yeah, it's like stuff like attack when they're not expecting it, and don't attack when they are. It's just keep people.
the
It's just all that kind
framework.
of stuff.
Yeah, the framework for war. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
Interesting. Or
really good,
battle.
man.
Yeah, really cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh yeah, it's a good book. It's different.
Yeah, different. Well, it's BCE, man.
It's
Gotta
in
be.
Chinese.
Yeah,
too.
and translated. Exactly. Right on.
It's good though.
All right, guys. See you next week.